All right, good morning, everybody. I, it hurts me that I have to talk about this, but it's a major issue, and I've spoken to one of these people involved in this. I have a few other people, and there is an issue going on, mostly because of the reaction to the apparent pandemic that. There's some confusion about what's the proper way to do certain things as far as the halachos of performing certain things over technological means for various reasons. And all of these things are controversial. But I think we have to get to the point where we have to make the difference between which things there's enough of a lack of a controversy, let's say, in order to allow it, and the things that the controversy is too large to allow to be done over Zoom or Skype or whatever other means. So humbly, I'd like to say this is my own opinion. I understand there are those who are more strict and there are those who are more lenient. But certainly if someone is a student of mine, had some sort of even Ravamanic smicha from me, which really doesn't mean very much at all to have a Ravamanic smicha. But, and I know there's one more famous one who specifically doesn't do this. Maybe not because I say so, but because it's common sense. And then another associate of his who does engage in this, and I'm probably going to call him and tell him that if he doesn't cease and desist, that he should find someone else to give him smicha, which I think he had already, and mistama he has, but I would be pretty much revoking his smicha based on that he continues to operate like this, even though, like I said, the smicha for me is basically just Ravomanic. It's not really worth very much, but I know my Rosh Yeshiva revoked the smicha of someone I went to yeshiva with. That's very open. That's Mike Moskowitz, and that smicha was revoked by my Rosh Yeshiva, by Rav Moshe Lazarus. I don't have smicha from Rav Moshe Lazarus, but it's worthwhile that he did that. And while what this younger man, this rabbi, is doing is not as bad as the things that Mike Moskowitz are doing, I feel personally I don't want my name attached to anything like this. And so that's why I'm talking about this. But before I say too much about it, I just want to make it clear which things, in my opinion, you can do through these technological means. Now, first of all, it's always best, if possible, under whatever circumstances, to do everything in person the way it's always been traditionally done. But already our poskim, who carry tremendous weight, even if we don't follow everything that all of their opinions matter tremendously. And it's worthwhile to know what they held, particularly the major Gedolei Ador, for example, Rav Moshe Feinstein and Rav Avadia Yosef, were both big tzaddikim and tremendous poskim. And they have both expressed that over the telephone, and I would say maybe all the more so over other live technology that we have, it's possible, theoretically, not the best thing, but for sure one can answer Amen to a bracha that one hears live on a telephone or some other live means, not a recording. And possibly one can even fulfill certain obligations through this, which again, they both express some hesitancy toward, but when there's a shasa dechach, when there's no other choice but to do it this way, there's what to say that we can rely on this. So when it comes to, for example, the one example I know Rav Moshe spoke about was Havdalah. There's an obligation before you eat, after the Shabbos is over, meaning even if you said, Atachan Tanu, or you said Baruch HaMavdil, or you said Gat Von Avram, or whatever it is, you made some verbal statement that Shabbos is over, but you're not supposed to eat until you're Mavdil ala kois, until you have a cup of ideally wine or perhaps grape juice, or according to some opinions, which are mostly, recognize the Chamar Medina. Everyone agrees that Chamar Medina exists and that one can be Mavdil on Chamar Medina. The question is, does the United States have a Chamar Medina, or do perhaps local certain states in the Union have Chamar Medina? These are issues that are not so simple, but most people will accept that there is in America certain drinks that would be considered Chamar Medina. But if for some reason you don't have access to anything like this, you can pick up a phone and listen to someone else being Mavdil ala kois. According to Rav Moshe, it seems, and other poskim, that your Yod you're allowed to eat. You fulfilled your obligation of hearing Havdalah, even hearing Havdalah over the phone. Some say it might only be for women because the obligation might be lesser for women, different things like that. But nonetheless, we have such a thing. Also, it's customary for women not to make their own Havdalah, and so, which is just a custom, perhaps even based on a little bit of a superstition. But nonetheless, that's something that it seems that Rav Moshe is taking into consideration there. Some other poskim also have expressed the same thing, even with Kriyas Megillah. Again, it's a chiyuv d'Rabbanan, but that one could hear the Megillah over the telephone or over Zoom and fulfill their obligation, at least sometimes the best they can. And so this year, I work as a chaplain in a mental hospital and in the prison. The prison, we weren't able to organize anything like that last year. The last thing we did before COVID hit in 2020 was Kriyas Megillah in both places, and then since then in the prison things are back to almost normal, that we should be able to do Kriyas Megillah in the prison this year, Mirz Hashem. But in the hospital, I'm not so hopeful about that. But in the hospital last year, we did it over the phone, and that's how they heard the Megillah. And so too with Zoom and things, and there are live Megillah readings. Many places offer their Megillah readings live on Zoom for that reason. Listening to a recording doesn't fulfill anything. Only it has to be live. The only thing you could say with a recording is if you have a kosher Megillah with you, you can read along from a recording. That's a different story. That's because you're reading it yourself. The same thing, Rav Ovadia said, if you want to have something to feel a b'tzibur, an answer to Baruch Hu, answer to Kaddish, answer to Kedusha, you could do that over the telephone, but you yourself cannot say the Baruch Hu or the Kaddish because the minyan is not there with you. And that's the thing, a minyan has to be all in one place, but if someone from the next room hears the minyan, even if they're not part of the minyan, they can answer the minyan, and it's the same thing with this. And so now we get to where it's really controversial. Weddings and conversions. Now, conversion, you can do all the studies online, whatever studying that the rabbi feels that you need to do before you go to the Bezdin. But the actual Bezdin, even though there are opinions that it doesn't have to be in person, the generally accepted halacha is that at least the Kabbalas and mitzvahs has to be in front of a Bezdin. Even if the Tevilah is not, even if the Milah is not, but the Kabbalas and mitzvahs has to be in front of Bezdin. And since that is an issue of kiyum, the Bezdin should be in person. And really for the Tevilah, it should also be in person. Some people are makel when it comes to Milah or the Hatofas Dam. But the Tevilah should be in person with the Bezdin, as should, and we know there's opinions that a person needs toivel by himself, but still, that's based on the idea that, first of all, it's between him and God, maybe. So maybe he's chayiv in the mitzvahs, but the community should not be accepting such a person until they make the Kabbalas and mitzvahs, and most likely the Tevilah itself, in front of a Bezdin. And so, to have a Bezdin only on the internet and not in person, that should not be done. Are there opinions that it might be okay? It's very, very b'diavad. It should be avoided at all costs. And I moiche my friend, lovingly moiche my friend, Rabbi Otero. He had opportunities to have a Bezdin be there on his behalf for some of these online conversions that he did, and he refused. That's a big problem. Meaning, it shows that he's not taking it very seriously. He's trying to make a political statement, and it's very inappropriate. And so that's why and Rabbi Meza would never do that. He's spoken very strongly against this. He's discouraged Rabbi Otero from doing this, and he really feels uncomfortable even working with Rabbi Otero because his name is affiliated with doing conversions online. I would say the people who did the online conversions are still chayiv in the mitzvahs, but before and maybe b'diavad, you want to count them for a minyan, but certainly before they can be married or anything like that, they have to do the conversion over again, including the tefillah and the Kabbalas and mitzvahs in front of a live Bezdin it could be a Bezdin shel hadyotis, and so that would be an appropriate thing. You want to have on Zoom some mumchim that which I wouldn't really say that Moshe Otero is such a mumcha, but you want to have mumchim, overseeing a Bezdin shel hadyotis. That's a different story. Meaning you have in person a Bezdin shel hadyotis, and you have mumchim who are watching on Zoom. That would be a very good thing to do. Meaning if that is in order to, let's say, you have someone like Parrot Steinberg or Shol David Harfin, some big dayanim that I've worked with in the past, and I know. Parrot Steinberg Shlita used to fly out to Denver and something. So meaning if he would be on Zoom watching, and you have a Bezdin shel hadyotis there in Denver, that's an appropriate way to do it. Because it covers a lot of bases. I don't know if that's something he would do necessarily, but it saves the expenses and things like that. But the actual Bezdin that is, the kiyum, that should not be done. There needs to be 3 Jewish men who are kosher la'edus to be there, even if they're hadyotis, at the actual Kabbalas and mitzvahs, and really by the Tevilah as well, which generally we do together anyway. the other thing is weddings. Now, the bracha, certainly the ksuba can be done on Zoom. That I've actually done, where the chassan's father read the ksuba, and he was in Muncie, and the chasna was somewhere down south. But and even the brachas of the Messiah Kiddushin could be said. The brachas of Shever brachas, you need a minyan. So if there's no minyan, you don't say the Shever brachas, and so the only bracha you say without a minyan is the bracha achrita and the brei pri hagafen from the Shever bracha. So bracha achrita and the Siddur Kiddushin could be done by Zoom, with according to that opinion. With the same thing we say about Havdalah, but the actual Eidim, the eidei kiyum, they have to be there in person. There's no excuse to have the Eidim. Again, you want to have the Messiah Kiddushin, who's the mumcha, making sure that you have kosher Eidim there, but the Eidim have to be there in person. There's no Kiddushin with like this with the Eidim being, unless you send a shliach, mekadosh with a shliach, but still there has to be Eidim, and the shlichus is usually that the chazan is one place and the kal is another place, and we don't do that. Not that the Eidim are in a different place. Eidim have to be there. So there's no, and so anybody who did such a chasana, and they want to have kosher Kiddushin, which not everybody wants. Some people just want like a civil wedding with some Jewish, traditions, and there were rabbanim from the Rabbanut who said not to make kosher Kiddushin for people not from, things like that. But if you want to have kosher Kiddushin, you have to do it with Eidim that are there in person, not being done. The Eidim can't be online. That's not the way we do things. It's eidei, yes, whatever. So that just means you're b'ter suffix, that you still would have to give a get or whatever it is, but it's not. That's not the way we do things. All right. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment. We'll see you later.